Hello, I'm Vincent Price. I have some very important information for you. I have it on high authority that the moon is not made of green cheese, which of course is a pity, because cheese comes in just about every color except green, and it would have been very nice to try and cook with green cheese. Well, never mind about that. There are plenty of things we can do with cheese which don't depend on the NASA space program to find new varieties for us. Cheese, in fact, can be cooked or eaten by itself. And if you are eating it by itself or serving it at a party, the presentation is just as important as the presentation of any other food. So later on, I'm going to show you some amusing ways to present cheese. But first, I'm going to cook with it. The dish I'm going to make is called paniqués au fondue, or as we in America would say, paniquettes au fondue. Literally, they are little pancakes with a cheese filling. The name is one of those rare examples of the French being able to say something in fewer words than the English. Or maybe I should have said than the Swiss, because the dish is basically a California dish via Switzerland. Anyway, it's an adaptation of a Swiss fondue. A fondue, of course, is a cheese dip. In this recipe, the mixture is used as a filling for small pancakes or crepes, but it can also be used as a dip as well. So if you've got some left over, well, use it. This makes it a rather good party idea. Now, our first task is to make the crepes. For this, we need some batter, which is really very easy to make. In fact, the whole dish is very easy to make. All we do is put about 4 ounces of flour with a pinch of salt in it and put it into a blender. Of course, you can do this by hand if you want, but a blender makes it easier. Now, what you do is take a large egg, put it in the blender, and then you add half a pint of milk. Then you turn on your blender, but first I would like to warn you to put on the top, or you may have a new paint job in your kitchen. Put it on low first, let it mix together well, and then put it on high for a minute. That should be just about done. Now the batter is very smooth. Don't forget, you can also mix it by hand if you want to. Now, to cook the crepes, heat a small frying pan, about 6 inches in diameter, about like that. And I have buttered this pan very well with a buttering brush here all the way around the edges. Now you pour some of the batter into your frying pan and you swirl it around the bottom of the frying pan so that it covers all of the edges. Now you let it stay on there to cook and let it go until all of the gloss disappears from the top. It'll take about a minute and it'll be brown and set on the other side. While this is cooking, let me tell you another little gem from Price's Gastronomic History of the World. One of the oldest cheeses of which records can be found is Cheshire cheese. And one time when I was up in that county, I heard a lovely little tale. It seems that in ancient times, in a little village in that county, there was a chest which had an extremely heavy lid, and this chest resided in the village church. No girl who couldn't lift the lid was considered strong enough to be a cheesemaker. Also, prospective wives were expected to pass the test, because in Cheshire it seemed that all the girls had to make cheese. Now our little paniqué is finished, and we turn it over on the other side, and we let it just brown there. It probably won't be quite as brown on the other side as it is on this one. It'll take about 30 seconds more to do the other side. Now, using the same amount of mixture and in the same way as I did it, you make 12 of these crepes. I've only made one, but I've got some already prepared. And later, I'm going to put this one in with the rest of it. Now, I'm going to put my little crepe over there. Isn't that pretty? Turn my gas off. And now I'm going to make the fondue. Now, if you've bought too much cheese for the dish, don't worry, because cheese that's gone off was used in the 12th century as glue and even as cement for houses. It's not recorded which cheese the house builders of that period preferred, but, well, anyway. For this fondue, I'm using Lancashire cheese. Lancashire cheese is perfect for it because it melts readily and it also can be easily crumbled, right? Now, in a saucepan, heat 4 fluid ounces of dry white wine. Be careful, however, not to let it boil. And then stir in 8 ounces of your crumbled cheese. Stir it in and stir it thoroughly so that you get it smooth and creamy. Stir it real well, mix it in with the wine, and your fondue is on its way. Doing this, I'm reminded of how photographers always ask people when they're posing for a still photograph to say cheese because it makes them smile. I don't really quite know why, but anyway, a variation of that occurred during the Peasant Revolt in England in 1381. You remember, of course. Then anyone who couldn't say cheese without a foreign accent was sent to the block. In that way, they prevented having a population explosion as we do today. Now, you take this fondue, which is beginning to get very nice and creamy, and to that you add a good little, well, a jigger, as we call it, about 1 teaspoonful of kirsch to some corn flour, or corn starch, as we call it in America. Stir it well, mix it well, and add it to your fondue. That will thicken it up a little bit, and you keep stirring that. And then you can put in some freshly ground pepper if you want. I love pepper, so I put a lot of it in. Usually I use white pepper because it keeps the fondue from having specks of black, which are unsightly, of course. Now, we keep it warm over a very, very low heat, and I'm going to tell you how to make the sauce that goes over the completed dish. The panique au fondue is going to be completed by pouring hollandaise sauce over it. Most of you, I expect, know how to make this sauce, but for those of you who don't, I'll run over the process with you and the ingredients. Now, if you don't have time to get down all the ingredients of this, don't worry, because I'm going to go over them again at the end of the program. To make it, you need half a pint of milk, 1 ounce of flour, 1 ounce of butter, 2 egg yolks, 2 teaspoons of lemon juice, salt, and pepper. So, it's really very easy. What you do is add the flour and butter to the milk. Now, stirring continually, you bring it all to a boil. Then you add your egg yolks and very gently get them in there. And when it is all thoroughly blended, you add your lemon juice, salt, and pepper, and that's it. Now, to make it even better and richer, and this is a really good secret, you take 2 or 3 tablespoons of thick cream, and you add it in there like that, and you beat it all up, and this is what it should look like, a lovely, thick hollandaise sauce. No more need you be terrified by the horrors of hollandaise sauce, or any dish for that matter, quite honestly, because no matter how hard they sound, they are all basically just cutting, beating, measuring, and cooking, and a lot of luck. Now, to fill the crepes. You remember now that in our last episode, the filling we left stranded on the cooker while our devilish cook was explaining to you about the hollandaise sauce. Now, for the rescue. As it is, this fondue is an excellent cheese dip. So, if you want, you can leave it at that and go no further. But the full panique au fondue demands that you fill the pancakes with the cheese mixture. So I will feed them with the cheese mixture. Sort of leave it at one end is helpful when you're going to roll them. According to the essayist Jonathan Swift, a bachelor's fare is bread, cheese, and kisses. Now, now you take your little paniquette and you add it to the others that I have already made. Hold it by the end so it won't lose its little filling. Tuck it neatly in, and you put it in the oven for about 4 or 5 minutes. Into the oven it went. I said at the beginning of the program that I'd show you some unusual ways of serving cheese. Well, I tell you, they really can come in handy for that next party you have. The first thing that I want to do is to create a monster. Now, I'm rather used to that. That is, if I'm not playing the monster myself. First, we take a sharp knife, and then we slit the top of a fine cucumber. I've known several cucumbers who deserved it. Now you put some blunted toothpicks into it to open his mouth, and you have the beginnings of your voracious monster. Now, if you want to, you can lay in a couple of pimentos for a tongue, you see, just to give him a little thing. Then you can take some blanched almonds and put them in for his teeth. I mean, every monster should have good teeth, and that one's not going to unless I get a good almond. There's a good almond. There's a good almond. Oh, he's going to have lovely teeth, all the better to bite you with, my dear. Now, already our prehistoric nightmare begins to take shape. Now you take a little red cherry and you put it on the end for a nose, the better to smell you with, my dear. Then you arrange 2 stuffed olives for his eyes, the better to see you with, my dear. He's going to be a glorious monster. Now, for his fins, because all monsters must have fins, we will put some spines down his back. But I think before I do that, I better give him some legs so that he can walk. Cocktail sticks will do this. Little legs so that he can walk. And our monster is now on his own. See how lovely he looks. Now finish him off by using more of these cheddar cheese spines and scales, and add more decoration as you feel you want to create. Let me tell you, as an expert, I know that the creation of monsters is, if not very satisfying, at least very lucrative. Now, with the magic of television, and because we don't really have enough time, I'm going to gently take my monster, make him disappear down here, and bring up a completed monster. What a glorious creature he is. Oh, what a lovely creature. All right. Now, you see, it's really very unfair to have just one monster. So before I created another monster, a companion, a helpmeet for him. And I made him by hollowing out a melon, and inside I put a Derby cheese dip. Now, I want to introduce them. Herman Monster and Hermione Monster. Please, I want you two to have a very good time, but no hanky-panky. Now, in fact, I've made quite a few party centerpieces using a variety of cheeses. This one, for instance, is a chess set. The men of the army, one army, are made from double Gloucester and Caerphilly, while the opponents are made of blue and white Stilton. Now, I've used these particular cheeses because besides tasting good, they can be cut into blocks and won't crumble. Of course, you can also make interesting displays of other sorts. out of cheeses. For example, this tuna fish little hors d'oeuvre that I've made here. I've made it out of Wensleydale cheese, tuna fish, and mayonnaise. Then I formed him into a fish, and then I decorated him with spines of cucumber and scales of radish and olives. This cheese was originally made by the monks of Jervaux Abbey in Yorkshire. Likewise, Leicester cheese is flaky and moist, and I've used it here to make a sunflower salad. Make a sunflower salad. Isn't that pretty? I think it's just lovely. You could almost wear it. Well, now comes the time to take the paniquettes out of the oven. So I will put on my gloves and take the paniquettes out of the oven. There are my paniquettes. Now we pour the hollandaise sauce. Just a lovely little trickle of it down the middle. Isn't that pretty? There. Now our paniquettes are going to go under the grill until the sauce has browned slightly. This should take about 30 seconds. As a final piece of Price history, I would like to tell you a little something about it. In Cheshire, where you recall they had the chest with the which the prospective wives had to lift. Well, the farmers up there, until quite recently, used to pay their rents in cheese. Then the rents went up. There. Let me see if I can get it almost there. We're going to watch it, because if it burns, it's no good, but it just must be exactly right. And I think we're almost right now. Anyway, it heats all the paniquettes through again and heats up your hollandaise sauce, and there you have it. It's not quite brown enough, but I'm a little afraid that we're running out of time. Anyway, you can watch it because it'll just bubble on the top a little bit. Now, the paniquettes are done. Now I'm going to run over the ingredients that I used to make this delightful dish. For the crepes now, I used 4 ounces of flour. I used 1 large egg, half a pint of milk, and half a teaspoon of butter. All put into the blender, or you can do it by hand, don't forget that, and made into a smooth batter. This I then put into a 6-inch little crepe pan and made my crepes. Now, for the fondue itself, 4 fluid ounces of dry white wine, 8 ounces of Lancashire cheese, 2 teaspoons of corn flour mixed with a tablespoonful of kirsch, or a little more if you like the flavor of kirsch, and I do. Use some salt and pepper, especially white pepper, I think. It makes it a little hotter. And then to make the hollandaise sauce to go over the paniquettes, I used a half a pint of milk, 1 ounce of flour, 1 ounce of butter, 2 egg yolks, and 3 teaspoons of lemon juice, and salt and pepper again. With that rich, gorgeous filling dish from California by way of Switzerland. And by the way, you know where I first had this dish was in Las Vegas, all places. Las Vegas, as you all probably know, is one of the great gambling centers of the world, and since they don't make their money on anything but the tables and the cards, food and entertainment is very cheap. And I don't like to gamble, so that's why I go there for a vacation. Now I'm going to make you a cup of coffee. You remember, I mentioned the ancient jug method of making coffee. which today I'm going to show you in detail. My water is boiling. It's really a very simple one indeed. All you do is take a jug, and into this you put 2 heaped teaspoons of coffee. It's best to heat your jug with a little bit of the water, and before you put it in, because it keeps it all very hot, put 2 heaped tablespoons full into the jug. Also, I like coffee very strong, so I always add another one, but you can do that according to your taste. Now, on top of this, you pour a pint of your boiling water. A whole pint of boiling water. You let this stand for, a couple of minutes, and then you stir it if you want, and then you pass the spoon over the top of the coffee like that, just to get all the grounds down. And after it's stood for a little while, you do that again, and you will find that the coffee grounds will sink to the bottom. Now, I have here another jug which has sat for a little bit longer, and so I'm going to use it. I'm once again going to pass the spoon over the top so that the coffee grounds will go down to the bottom. You'll be kind of amazed how that works. It's really a miracle. But just in case you don't want any grounds at all, pour it through a sieve into a pretty pot and have yourself a glorious, rich cup of coffee. Look how few grounds there are in there. Pour yourself the coffee, which you can drink with heated milk, not boiled milk. Really, heated milk is the way to do it. Now, you can have it with cream, if you like. As a matter of fact, in Vienna, they have a marvelous dish called Kaffee mit Schlag. They take sweetened whipped cream, and into the bottom of the cup of rich black coffee, they put a couple of lumps of sugar, like that. They don't stir them up. They put the whipped cream on top, and they drink the hot coffee through the cold, sweet cream. And down at the bottom is the glorious taste thrill of that sugar which has been steeping in the coffee. Ah, I see, by another miracle, somebody has served me a lovely dish of panique au fondue. I'm going to try them, see if they were as good as the last time I put a nickel in the slot machine in Las Vegas. That's about all the gambling I ever do. I've got too much else to do with my money. Remember, please, that it's a very easy thing to be an adventurous international cook. And yet, you can still use the ingredients that are available in your local shops or supermarkets. And so, it's delicious. Until we meet again, good cooking, everyone. Thank you.